So welcome back to Orchid House. I'm Olivier in Fort Lauderdale, and those who've been following my channel Orchid House, you know that I like Catasetums, right? So it's one of my favorite genera. So one genus, two genera, weird things from the Latin. And I've made videos on all these subjects that I'm going to cover now, but I figured I'll give you one good recap on how to grow Catasetums. And the good news, it's really easy. So Catasetums have a very specific life cycle, and it's a yearly cycle, and as long as you understand it, all you have to do is observe your plant, and then the plant will tell you exactly what you need to do, so it doesn't get any easier than that. Now, my video from a few days ago regarding dendrobium care had some bad news that there is no one size fits all when it comes to dendrobiums. This is quite different with Catasetums. The good news, you can take care of them the same way, all of them. Now in nature, the species may have more or less light, they may have a more extensive dry period, but you can care for them the same way and you'll get good results, so that's not going to be an issue. So that's the good news. Now, so let's start with the beginning. Catasetums go dormant every winter, typically in the winter. So a dormant Catasetum looks like this. It has shed all its leaves and the bulbs are bare. And if you've done a good job the previous growing season, your bulbs are very plump. So all these bulbs here are very hard, and they are hard and plump because they are filled with water. So that's the good news, because all that water is a reserve to go through the dormancy, and so as long as you have these plump bulbs, the plant can withstand dormancy, or can withstand drought, not a single drop of water, for many months without any problem. Now if you have a plant that is shriveled, that might be a problem. So if it looks like it may die, what you may want to try is give it a real good soaking once, like real good soaking, and then let it dry out and see what happens. Usually it should plump up pretty quickly and then get back on track. If it was on the way out, then it will probably die and rot. But I mean, if you do a good job the previous year, you're not going to have any issue with the dormancy. So how long does the dormancy last? Well, if you grow hybrids like most people, it should be 1 to 2 months. That's typical. If in the background of your hybrids you have species that have very long dormancies like Denticulatum, Tigrinum, Spitzii, Vinaceum, then you could have a hybrid that stays dormant longer. Now, species, it varies a lot. I mean, Pileatum, which is the most popular one, the most beautiful, the largest flower, they have practically no dormancy, and sometimes no dormancy at all, or at least very short. The majority will be dormant for 2 months, that's what you can count on, and then the ones I named before, it can be 4, 5, 6 months of dormancy. Now the trick is, when the plant is dormant, you do not water it at all. So for me, they move from this area where they have the sun and the rain, and I water them. They are moved to an area where there's an overhang and there's not a single drop of rain that can hit them. And I let them completely dry during all that time. Then you have to keep an eye on them, and then you'll have some good surprise with a new growth that pops up. And a new growth looks like this. It's a tiny little thing on one of the dormant bulbs. If you have a very old plant, you may have several of those. So it's really tiny, and the trick, first of all, that's when you repot the plant. So I refer to the video where I show how to repot them. But the trick is that you do not water them. If you do water them, they're going to end up rotting. So these little growths are very rot prone. So you extend the period of drought, and again, as long as your bulbs are plump, it doesn't matter. It's going to be able to withstand it. Now, why do you want to repot it now? Because it doesn't have any roots. Now, the roots from the previous year are practically worthless. Most of them are dead. They won't sustain the next growing season. So the plant will grow a ton load of new roots, and that's what's going to sustain it for the next year. So if you do it now, you do not risk damaging the roots. If you wait for the roots to be a certain length, then when you repot them, the odds are high that you're going to damage the roots. That's a huge no-no. And then you're going to have to be very patient. This is an example of a plant. So you see this new growth is a pretty nice size. It's probably like 4 inches long. But you still do not water it, and the reason is, if you look down here in the medium, this has been repotted, fresh medium, the roots are tiny. There's very few roots yet. So again, so you see this is very plump, so it can stay dry for a lot longer than this. The longer you wait, the more roots you're gonna have, and the better your growing season is gonna be. It might be especially if it's your first Catasetum, you're really anxious. You want to start a production, you're going to start watering them. At this stage, this is probably not going to rot, but I mean, you make the plant lazy. What you want is the plant to produce a lot of roots searching for water, and then once they have a lot of roots, typically we say 3 to 5 inches long growth, and 3 to 5 inches high growth, and 3 to 5 inches long roots. That's when you start watering. And then you water like crazy. I mean, during the whole growing season, which is typically 6 months, you're gonna water them all the time. I mean, they barely get dry. I still have a bunch of plants here. So when you have, let me see, these are all long spikes already. I'm trying to find, yeah, this one here. So you see that's a new flower growing here. It's a flower spike, and so that's how it starts. And then the spike will typically take a month and a half to develop into flowers. The spike keeps on growing, so that's what it looks like. Now these are male flowers. I will not broach the subject of male and female flowers here. That's too long, but I made a video on that, so you're welcome to go check it out. Below this video I will post a few links, like repotting male and female flowers. So these are male flowers, and then eventually you have flowers. So this is a fairly new hybrid, Catasetum Tommy Bednar, very popular. There are two types of colors. This is a primary hybrid between Ivanei, which is very dark, almost black, and then a Vinaceum, which is dark red. And so this obviously has the Vinaceum that's predominant in the background. I have two of these. The other one is almost black, and so that's the beauty with Catasetum hybrids. And many orchid hybrids, you have siblings and they all look different, at least when it comes to colors. The shape of the lip, the structure of the flower is the same, but the color can be substantially different. So you have a growing season. A young plant will maybe bloom once a year, maybe twice. If you have very mature plants, they can bloom 3 or 4 times. I had a couple that bloomed 5 times. And you may also have more than one spike at the same time. So that's really beautiful. Most Catasetum will have pendant spikes, so then you have to find a way to display them. You have an example here. This is in Curvum, so these flowers are almost spent, but you see it's heavily pendant. That's one of these odd-looking species. It's not a hybrid. You have another species here, Tabulare, another one which is, I mean, the hybrids are typically more standard-looking flowers, but there's a lot of different shapes in the Catasetum world, and again you see very pendant. Now occasionally, like Sanguineum, they're gonna grow upright. Then sometimes the hybrid has a strong influence from one of the species in the background. It will have an upright spike, but that's fairly rare, so count on them basically being pendant inflorescences. And then during that time, so you fertilize a lot. It's being said that it's really hard to over-fertilize a Catasetum, so they are very hungry. Their growth season is tightly packed over 4, 6 to 8 months, so they really have to produce a show during that time, so they need a lot of energy. And then at one point in time, usually during the fall, you're going to start having yellowing leaves, and that's a sign that the plant is heading towards dormancy. Now when this happens, you stop fertilizing, and then you also reduce the watering quite a bit. You want to alternate really dry periods with soaking. Here, I mean, we have monsoon rains in the summer, and so during the summer months I have already very plump bulbs, but if they are not plump enough, you really need to work on that. And you see this one, it has 4 bulbs, they're all very, very plump, very hard, nice and fat. So this is ready to go dormant. This is about to fall off. I may trim off these leaves so that I can put it aside and let it go dormant. I mean, there's no real good or wrong strategy there. Some people just let them fall off on their own. And then again, I move them to an area where they don't get any type of rain, any water. So you see, it's very easy. So you have a definite cycle, you have dormancy, you have new growth, you do not water at that time, the growth, and especially a lot of new roots need to have emerged before you start watering. Then you water like crazy, and towards the end the leaves start yellowing and you start preparing the plant for dormancy. So it doesn't get any easier than that. All you have to do is observe the plant and do what you're supposed to do. Now many people tell you force them into dormancy. You can do that. I have a laissez-faire approach, and I let the plants do what they want to do. I import some plants from South America, Brazil, and it's the southern hemisphere, and believe it or not, for whatever reason they can take years to adjust to the northern hemisphere, which I've never understood, but that's how it is. So I just do what the plant tells me to do. If it's dormant in the summer, well, it's dormant in the summer. And it's like these guys, I mean, the one I showed you before with a new growth, I mean, that's already ready for the next season. I'm not sure why that is the case, but the plant will do very, very well like this. So again, it's very easy to grow. So just if you follow these few bits of advice, you should be doing great. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.